figure out where the signal is coming from. In our tracking truck, we call it EMIT. That's E-M-I-T-T for Electromagnetic Interference Tracking Truck. And EMIT's kind of like our electromagnetic sniffer dog. He'll figure out the source of the problem signal. And at that point, we'll knock on somebody's door and say, "Excuse us, sir or madam, but there's an electronic in your home giving us some troubles." And usually it's pretty easy to resolve from there. So on the way back up the road, I'll give you a few examples of local interference. Alright, currently on our right, we have kind of a chunky white telescope. This one is called the 20 meter, and it was designed and built by the U.S. Navy. The Navy came to us in the early 1990s, and they asked if they could put a telescope on our site. We said, "Well, sure, but can we have it when you're done?" And they said, "That sounds pretty good to us." So the Navy actually built and used that telescope to study geology. Specifically, they were interested in continental drift and plate tectonics. They used the position of objects in space in order to calculate the relative position of the plate tectonics on Earth. So that one is unique because it was used to study Earth instead of studying outer space like most of our others do. When the Navy finished up with that telescope, they gave it to us. We're currently renting the 20 meter to the University of North Carolina. They use it for their Skynet program. And if you've ever seen the Terminator movies, that's not the same Skynet, we hope. Okay, on our left right now we have an old telescope known as the Tadel telescope. This is an 85-foot telescope. Now the Tadel telescope we named after its designer Howard Tadel, who actually died of a brain tumor suddenly before this one was completed, which was a tragedy in the early days of our observatory. We named it in his memory. Now the Tadel telescope holds an especially important place in our hearts and our history here at the observatory, considering this was actually our first operational telescope. So not to be confused with the first radio telescope ever, the Reavers, this was the first telescope that we operated here at Green Bank. The Tadel telescope was most famously used by astronomer Frank Drake, who began the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI for short. The SETI program. He was looking for alien life, and there's a little building in front of the telescope where we house the aliens that he found. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, Frank Drake did not find any extraterrestrial signals that could be considered intelligent, but the search actually continues today, and there's a private partner that from time to time rents our GBT so that he can continue the search for alien life. So if we find anything, we will keep you updated.
How many are truly operational?
So there are 4 of our telescopes that are currently operational. The Tadel telescope, I forgot to mention, is not operational today. Alright, right now on our left we have the smallest telescope on site, the 40-foot. And it has a screen dish. You can see right through the dish of this one. The screen is still effective, just as effective as a solid panel, because radio wavelengths are too large to fit through the holes in a screen. Alright, now the 40-foot has a little underground bunker next to it, kind of a cellar, that contains the operating computers for the telescope, and that is a safety feature as well. That is just to keep the operator safe. If the telescope were ever to fall over or to lose pieces, maybe in a windstorm, the operator would be safe underground. The 40-foot is our teaching telescope, and we use that one for students 5th grade through college level. We'll actually teach those students how to operate that telescope by themselves so they can collect their own astronomy data. And we'll show them how to interpret their data to see what it means, so they can figure out what they've been observing in outer space. So that's some great real-world astronomy hands-on practice for some young students. Coming up next on the left is one of my personal favorites, the 140-foot telescope. Now this telescope was completed in 1965 and it's still operating today. So this one is operational. On the way back up the road, I'll let you know what it's working on. Now you might notice this telescope kind of looks like a cargo ship. At least the bottom half of it looks sort of like the front end of a cargo ship. And that's because we actually contracted the construction of this telescope to a shipbuilding company. So it kind of shows. This is also a hydraulic telescope, and there's one ball bearing that holds the entire moving weight of the telescope. About halfway up there are 2 round portal windows. Again, shipbuilding company. We can't really see through those windows, but that's where the ball bearing is located. That is the world's largest hydrostatic ball bearing. It's solid steel. It's 17.5 feet in diameter and weighs 163 tons of solid steel. That was manufactured in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and shipped here on the railroads, but we